Lu Ping, the ninth prince, was abruptly awoken from a peaceful nap by a sudden jolt and a sharp pain in his back. Dazed and disoriented, he lay sprawled on the ground of his secluded garden pavilion, the spot he frequented for rest after long hours of reading. As he began to process what happened, a burst of mocking laughter rang in his ears. Looking up, he was met with the smug face of Princess Lu Qiang, his older half-sister. Lu Qiang stood over him with a self-satisfied grin, casually, reminding him that if he was in pain, he no longer had the right to sleep there. Lu Ping, still trying to gather his thoughts, remained silent for a moment. The hammock he'd been resting on had collapsed. The book that had once shaded his eyes now lay on the ground beside him. His loyal eunuch Da Sheng knelt nearby, visibly trembling. When Lu Ping questioned whether she had kicked him, Lu Qiang confirmed it without hesitation. With a resigned sigh, he asked her what she was doing, addressing her by name. She immediately barked at him to use the proper title, Royal Sister. Knowing better than to argue, Lu Ping forced himself to suppress the pain and addressed her with reluctant respect. Lu Qiang, a product of imperial favor and indulgence as the daughter of the emperor's beloved consort, had grown up pampered and arrogant. Her sharp tongue and dominating demeanor made her one of the most feared among the emperor's children. Despite her condescending attitude, she found herself momentarily unsettled by Lu Ping's appearance. His sleepy eyes, soft voice, and delicate expression gave him an unexpected charm. For reasons she didn't quite understand, she reached down to grab his chin, an act Lu Ping instinctively pulled away from. Annoyed, Lu Qiang scolded him for looking at her with those eyes, and cruelly commented on his looks, implying that he was born merely to seduce others. Unsurprising, she said, considering his mother had been a lowly servant. She made it clear that just because they shared blood, she would never see him as her equal, let alone a brother. Lu Ping, calmly and politely, asked why she had come to disturb his rest. Her answer was simple and arrogant. She'd been in a good mood, wandering around, until the sight of him ruined it. She felt fully justified in taking out her irritation by kicking him. He was baffled. Even when resting quietly in his own courtyard, trouble still found him. With a sigh, he picked up his book and made to leave, but Lu Qiang demanded that he stay. She began mocking his meek personality, sneering at how unprincely he appeared, and accusing him of making her look like a bully simply for waking him up to study. Though Lu Ping remained indifferent, his silence only seemed to agitate her further. As Lu Ping sat quietly, a rough touch brushed against his cheek, the calloused fingers making his skin itch. Reflexively, he slapped the hand away, causing the book tucked in his sleeve to slip and fall to the ground. The man who had touched him stood tall and imposing, his presence almost overbearing. But rather than reacting with anger, the man simply laughed and remarked on how messy Lu Ping's hair was. Caught off guard, Lu Ping realized the wind had indeed mussed his hair, but the stranger's casual action of touching him was far beyond what etiquette allowed. Embarrassed, Lu Ping quickly tried to fix his appearance and once again extended a jade pendant, clearly meant to signify identity or sincerity. Yet the man ignored it completely, choosing instead to stoop down and pick up the fallen book. "Selected poems," the man read aloud, clearly more interested in Lu Ping's belongings than returning what had been offered. Lu Ping held his breath, tense under the gaze of this unfamiliar nobleman. Before he could speak again, a group of young noble sons on horseback arrived, chattering and laughing loudly. They teased Lu Ping and apologized simultaneously, claiming they had mistaken him for someone else. They expressed gratitude for the return of a jade pendant, though it was clear their words carried a mocking tone. The man who held Lu Ping's book didn't seem inclined to stop flipping through it, treating the contents with casual disregard. With growing frustration, Lu Ping politely asked for his book to be returned, only to be met with deliberate stalling. The man dismissed his request, showing no urgency at all. Again, Lu Ping extended the jade pendant, only for it to be ignored once more. The laughter from the others continued to grow louder. One of them called the man Yan Ren, jokingly, scolding him for teasing Lu Ping too much. Another noted how red Lu Ping's face had become, teasing that he couldn't handle the attention. The rest joined in, some even asking Lu Ping which family he was from. His looks, they said, were too memorable to forget. Mortified, Lu Ping realized that his face was indeed burning. The man, Yan Ren, finally stopped flipping through the book and asked Lu Ping to recite the poem he had been speaking earlier. The others took the opportunity to egg him on, saying that if he recited it, they'd give his book back. With everyone's attention on him, Lu Ping's mind went blank. Flustered and overwhelmed, he scrambled to recall something appropriate. Finally, in a soft, trembling voice, he began to recite, "Yearning for the imperial land, springtime outing, apricot blossoms fall upon my head." The crowd quickly noticed the mismatch. It was autumn, not spring, and they jeered, demanding the next line. But Lu Ping, now fully aware of how out of place and vulnerable he felt, could only cling to what little composure he had left. The servants were in a flurry of activity as the young master returned home late at night. He had gone out in the morning on horseback and returned by carriage, the scent of alcohol trailing behind him. Though they suspected he had been drinking, he stepped out steadily, his demeanor composed. When they rushed to prepare hot water and sobering soup, he waved off their concerns, assuring them he was not drunk. Zhang Yun watched him carefully, noting that although his gaze was clear, the scent of wine still lingered heavily. Yan Ren inquired whether Madame Zhang, his wet nurse, and Zhang Yun's mother had already gone to bed. Upon hearing she had, he expressed relief, knowing she would otherwise scold him at length for drinking. Inside the courtyard, Yan Ren moved with his usual confident grace, his steps light on the stone walkway. The servants followed silently, awaiting further instruction. Once inside, he removed his hairpin and loosened the binders around his arms. As hot water was being prepared, Steward Zhao brought up another matter Madame Zhang had recently mentioned, a new imperial decree. The emperor had ordered the selection of promising young noblemen to attend the prestigious Baihu Hall alongside the crown prince. She hoped Yan Ren would apply. This caught Yan Ren off guard. He had nearly forgotten the imperial selection. Although it was a great honor, he had no interest in scholarly pursuits and much preferred martial training like his father. Still, with his parents far away in the northern borderlands, he knew he had little choice but to respect Madame Zhang's wishes. Before he could respond further, Steward Zhao brought up another issue. A servant had been behaving suspiciously. Upon searching him, they found a silver ingot. The servant was now kneeling at the door, his forehead striking the ground as he begged for forgiveness. When questioned, the man admitted he had been approached by someone earlier who offered him silver in exchange for information about Yan Ren's whereabouts. The man had inquired specifically whether Yan Ren had entered the palace and when. Pressed further, the servant revealed the visitor had shown a palace token and claimed to be of noble status. What shocked them all was the man's final statement. The visitor said that someone within the palace held affection for Yan Ren and had sent him to ask about his schedule. The entire courtyard fell silent, save for the sound of crickets. The maids and servants averted their eyes, while Steward Zhao and Zhang Yun were visibly stunned. Zhang Yun coughed awkwardly, clearly trying to hide his discomfort, while everyone else stood in frozen surprise. As dusk descended, Lu Ping's palanquin departed Danfeng Gate and made its way through Guangzhou District, finally stopping in front of the northern marquise's residence in Ruan District. The sky glowed with the remnants of sunlight, and the faint stars barely peeked through. Lu Ping glanced outside, thoughtful. His attendant, Da Sheng, approached the gate bearing a crane-engraved token, but before the guard could respond, Steward Jay rushed out to greet them. With a polite smile, Steward Zhao explained that the young master, Yan Ren, was not at home. He had gone out earlier to celebrate the Qixi festival in Pingkang District with young Master He. Lu Ping nodded and said, "That was no problem. He simply wished to return something to Yan Ren." As he reached into his sleeve for the double rabbit pendant, Steward Zhao quickly refused, saying he dared not accept anything on his master's behalf. Since it was a personal item given by Yan Ren himself, it would be more proper for Lu Ping to return it directly. Reluctantly, Lu Ping agreed. The palanquin changed course and headed for the lively streets of Pingkang District. Though the ninth prince usually preferred quiet places, there was something about the bustling energy of Pingkang that intrigued him. He often found solace observing chaos from a quiet spot, such as a balcony in a noisy restaurant. But he figured Yan Ren, unlike himself, probably thrived in such excitement. Eventually, the crowded streets forced Lu Ping to disembark and continue on foot. He told Da Sheng they should head to Yuren Tower, suspecting Yan Ren might be there after overhearing girls gossiping about a tower competition. Even if he wasn't, it would at least be entertaining. Yuren Tower hosted a lively tradition during festivals, a competition in which noble youths and wealthy heirs stood in 3 towers. The crowd below would scramble for personal items or trinkets tossed down by the young masters, earning a chance to climb up and drink with the person who threw it. Tonight, however, the competition had taken a flashy turn. Excited cries erupted through the street as copper coins began raining down like petals. The crowd surged toward the towers, pushing and jostling to grab the money. From overheard conversations, Lu Ping learned the center tower was occupied by Fu Yi, Duke Fu's second son and the empress's nephew. The west tower held He Shinbai, son of the prime minister. The two were clearly competing to see who could attract the larger crowd. Curious about the events unfolding, and wondering where Yan Ren fit into all this, Lu Ping continued forward, preparing himself for an encounter that might be far more chaotic than anticipated. Lu Ping had no memory of how he returned to the palace. Da Sheng later informed him that after leaving Yuren Tower, Lu Ping had become so intoxicated that he lost all awareness. Da Sheng had to support him for an extended period as they wandered around Pingkong district before finally securing a carriage to transport them back to the palace. Upon arriving at Kangju Court, Lu Ping collapsed into bed and fell into a deep sleep. The following day, when he attended his studies at Baihu Hall, he still suffered from a throbbing headache. The wine Yan Ren had been drinking was indeed potent, far stronger than the fruit wines typically served in the palace. In the subsequent days, Lu Ping refrained from leaving the palace and did not encounter Yan Ren again. After Bailu, the White Dew Festival, Baihu Hall in the imperial city officially selected over 10 sons from the aristocracy and imperial family to commence their studies. Yan Ren was among them. He entered the palace early in the morning, passing through the Vermilion Bird Gate and then the Jiafu Gate before reaching the Eastern Palace. Inside the study area of Baihu Hall, new desks were already arranged neatly, with palace attendants standing on either side. The Grand Tutor had yet to arrive, and except for 2 or 3 empty seats, the hall was already filled with students. Yan Ren chose the seat in the farthest corner, where he happened to spot Fu Yi sitting just in front of him. Fu Yi was the Ayu Aizi Oined, second son of the Duke of Fu. His father was the emperor's brother-in-law, and his aunt was the empress. With an elder brother inheriting the title, Fu Yi held a unique position within the imperial family. Among all the princesses, Lu Qiang stood out as the most stunning and favored. The moment she entered the hall, a group of noble young men and women flocked to greet her. Dressed in a pale yellow jacket paired with a patterned skirt of red and apricot diamonds and draped in a sheer shawl, she looked every bit the epitome of elegance. Her hair, adorned with golden hairpins and red blossoms, only enhanced her dignified, refined aura. Seated off to the side, Lu Ping observed the scene in silence as the crowd gathered around her. Lu Jing, with a resigned sigh, scolded gently, "Chang'er, you were nearly late again." Lu Ji chimed in as well, gesturing to the newcomers. "Chang'er, come greet our new guests. This is the second son of Duke Fu, and here we have young Master Yan from the Northern Marquis household." From his position, Lu Ping caught a glimpse of Lu Qiang gracefully approaching. Her movements were delicate and refined, her face tinged with gentle shyness, and her voice as soft as a spring breeze as she addressed, "Young Master." Yan Ren, in turn, bowed respectfully. "Your Highness, 8th Princess." At that moment, a chill ran down Lu Ping's spine. What on earth had happened to Lu Qiang? She seemed like a completely different person. Docile, demure, even flirtatious. The lesson was about to begin, and the chatter in the hall gradually died down as everyone returned to their seats. Lu Ping, finally finding peace, breathed a sigh of relief and focused on his book. But then, Lu Qiang's voice echoed through the room. "Wait, I want to change seats." The palace attendant froze mid-task, glancing over uncertainly. Lu Ping heard approaching footsteps. Moments later, a pair of embroidered shoes appeared at the edge of his vision. He looked up to find Lu Qiang smiling faintly down at him. "I want to sit here," she announced. Lu Ping frowned. This troublemaker was always stirring things up. He calmly reminded her, "Your seat is over there." "I want you to switch with me," she insisted. Normally, Lu Ping would have surrendered the seat just to avoid confrontation. But today's spot was perfect. Located at the back row, shaded by Haitian Bai's tall frame, and right in front of an open door that let in a gentle breeze. He had no desire to give it up. He glanced at Lu Qiang's original seat and immediately recoiled at the thought. That area was surrounded by Lu Ji, Lu Fang, and Lu Zhao. A pit of distractions and drama. Sitting there would be a nightmare, and he wouldn't be able to concentrate at all. Lu Qiang pressed again. "Ninth brother, did you not hear me?" Lu Ping raised an eyebrow. There was something different about her today. Although still assertive, her tone lacked its usual sharpness. He asked, "Why?" To his surprise, Lu Qiang's gaze wavered, and a rare hint of embarrassment flashed across her face. She glanced sideways, toward the seat beside Lu Ping. Lu Ping followed her line of sight and spotted none other than Yan Ren seated next to him. And just like that, everything made sense. So that was her game. She wanted to sit next to Yan Ren. As class began, Song Siwan's sharp voice cut through the air, commanding Lu Ping to recite Jian Shu's lament for his soldiers, a piece from the previous lesson. Lu Ping, who had been doing his best to stay hidden behind his classmates, felt his stomach drop. Despite his efforts to avoid attention, the teacher's gaze found him with unerring precision. Lu Qiang and Lu Fang exchanged looks of barely concealed amusement, clearly hoping to witness Lu Ping's embarrassment. Lu Ji scrutinized him coldly, while Lu Jing seemed the only one with any concern, his brows slightly furrowed. Resigned, Lu Ping slowly closed his book and began to recite. In the winter, Duke Wen of Jin passed away. On the day of Gangchen, he was interred at Kuo. His voice was hesitant, and he stumbled occasionally over the words. Lu Qiang snickered, but Lu Ping pressed on, determined to finish the passage. Before he could get far, however, Song Siwan raised his hand to stop him. "That's enough," the teacher said, sweeping his eyes over the class. He reminded them that lineage and noble status were meaningless here. What mattered was cultivation and integrity. He made it clear. Anyone who couldn't even recite the basics was unfit to remain in Baihu Hall. Turning back to his roster, Song Siwan slowly scanned the names, squinting with age-clouded eyes, until he selected one. Yan Ren, continue from where the ninth prince left off. A hush fell over the room. Xinbai hesitantly raised his hand, informing the teacher that the students from the Fu Family Academy hadn't studied that particular text yet. Yan Ren, too, was from that academy. Song Siyuan blinked in surprise. "You haven't?" Fu Yi rose and respectfully explained that their most recent lesson had only covered Jie Jitui's silent refusal of rewards, and they hadn't reached the lament yet. Lu Qiang, ever quick to exploit a situation, chimed in, suggesting that it was unreasonable to expect someone to recite a text they hadn't learned. She proposed they move on. Song Siyuan, nodding, changed his command. "Very well. Yan Ren, recite silent refusal of rewards instead." Yan Ren rose gracefully. Under the attentive eyes of the room, he gave a respectful bow to the teacher. Lu Ping remained standing, watching curiously as Yan Ren turned to him, with a faintly confident smile. Then he said something unexpected. "Teacher, I can recite Jian Shu's lament for his soldiers." Gasps echoed from Fu Yi and He Xinbai. "But we haven't studied that yet." With a raised brow, Yan Ren confirmed they hadn't, but said he had memorized it anyway. He turned to Lu Ping and asked where he had left off, admitting he hadn't paid close attention earlier. Startled, Lu Ping recalled the last line he spoke. "And though they march 1,000 miles, who does not know?" Before he could finish, Yan Ren picked up flawlessly. The Duke declined their counsel. He summoned Meng Ming, Shi Qi, and Bai Yi to lead the troops beyond the eastern gate. His voice was smooth and unwavering, each word articulated with ease. A quiet awe spread through the classroom. Murmurs of praise followed as the students began to realize Yan Ren had just effortlessly recited an unassigned text. Lu Qiang, beaming, seized the moment to jab at Lu Ping once more. With a sneer, she remarked that the young master of the Yan family was truly exemplary, hardworking and diligent, already mastering lessons yet to be taught. Then, she turned the spotlight back on Lu Ping, criticizing his earlier fumbling and declaring him a disgrace. The long-awaited exam results had finally arrived, with each student's scorebook being distributed as scheduled. Lu Ping, ever the picture of calm, stayed tucked away in his study, idly flipping through a book. Meanwhile, Chu Shui and Jile were carefully rearranging and dusting the shelves of an ancient bookcase nearby. Just as the tranquil atmosphere settled in, Da Sheng's voice rang out before he even reached the courtyard. "Good news!" Startled, Chu Shui and Jile nearly dropped the books they were holding. Lu Ping, without lifting his eyes from the page, calmly reminded them to be cautious. Those books needed to be returned in perfect condition. With the energy of a man delivering a royal decree, Da Sheng burst into the room, still breathless from his sprint. "The rankings are out!" Lu Ping already had an inkling about his result from Da Sheng's excitement. But it was Chu Shui and Jile who pounced first, demanding the details. "What rank did our prince get? What about the 8th princess? Come on, tell us." Even Madame Wang appeared in the doorway holding a spatula, eyes wide with anticipation. "Well, did our highness win?" With everyone's attention on him, Da Sheng dramatically pulled out the scorebook and declared, "The 8th princess ranked 3rd in the C tier, and our prince ranked 3rd in the B tier." Relief washed over Lu Ping, a heavy weight lifted from his chest. Jile, wide-eyed with excitement, asked for confirmation. And what place exactly did His Highness get? Madame Wang, ever competitive on behalf of the household, pressed further. Did he finally beat the 8th princess? Da Sheng couldn't hold back his grin. After pausing for dramatic flair, he proudly announced, "Second, 2, last," gasps. And laughter filled the room. "Wow, that's incredible. Second to last? That's our prince. Absolutely brilliant." Even Lu Ping winced, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of mock celebration. His temples throbbed. Then came the real twist. If His Highness is second to last, then where did the 8th princess end up? Qiu Shui asked. Da Sheng's eyes sparkled. "The 8th princess? She's dead last," he finished with glee. That declaration sent the household into a whirlwind of celebration. Jilo twirled around the courtyard with Qiu Shui and Da Sheng singing and dancing like they'd just won a war. Madame Wang, overjoyed, declared a celebratory feast. "To honor our prince's glorious second-to-last place, I'll steam some big river crabs. Is there anything else your highness desires?" Lu Ping couldn't help but laugh, half from amusement, half from despair. "The crabs will do. Thank you, Madame Wang." He looked up from his book, catching sight of Da Sheng and the others gathered around his exam results. None of them could actually read, but they examined the teacher's comments like they were admiring a work of art. Their pride was written all over their faces. Lu Ping's lips curved into a soft smile. For once, it felt like maybe, just maybe, he was winning at something after all. The next morning, Lu Ping headed to Baihu Hall. Ready or not, another day was beginning. When Lu Ping arrived at the martial arts training ground, he noticed that Lu Jing was still immersed in his sword lesson, despite the echo of the drum signaling the session's end long ago. Rather than interrupt, Lu Ping stayed under a nearby pavilion, quietly watching his brother. Lu Jing, guided by the Grand Tutor, practiced his sword forms with precision and grace. The tassel on his sword flicked through the air as his robes followed each fluid movement, painting a picture of both elegance and strength. Even from afar, Lu Ping could feel the intensity and confidence radiating from him. Eventually, a palace maid approached and offered Lu Jing a towel, which marked the conclusion of the lesson. After exchanging farewells with his tutor, Lu Jing glanced toward the pavilion and waved to Lu Ping, his expression warm, though reserved. Lu Ping, delighted, quickly ran over and greeted him with an enthusiastic, "Brother!" Lu Jing, in turn, invited him to dine at his palace. When Lu Ping asked whether he had plans to accompany their mother that evening, Lu Jing explained that the empress would be dining with their father instead. Just as Lu Jing reached to place an arm around Lu Ping's shoulder, he paused mid-motion, glancing down at his sweat-drenched robes. With a faint smile, he told Lu Ping he would bathe first and that he was free to start eating if he was hungry. Lu Ping shook his head and replied that he would wait. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the palace began to glow with candlelight, the servants at Yan Ren Hall busied themselves setting the evening table. Lu Ping knelt by the side, reviewing his exam booklet while waiting. When Lu Jing returned, freshly bathed and dressed in light robes, the two brothers sat to enjoy their meal together. Their conversation turned to politics. Lu Jing shared that during the morning court, members of the censorate had once again criticized the entrenched power of the aristocracy. Their voices had been particularly loud and forceful that day, prompting the emperor to dine with the empress, a subtle but clear political signal. Lu Ping furrowed his brow and commented that, although discontent among scholars wasn't new, the intensity of their rhetoric felt different. He asked if something had occurred to provoke it. Lu Jing explained that recent reports had stirred the court. During the Qi festival, the second son of the Fu family and the third son of the He family had been seen recklessly throwing money in the streets of Pingkang district. Though the Yan family's young master hadn't joined them in such displays, his usual extravagance around the city had already drawn attention and criticism. Lu Ping remarked that it was unfortunate. Despite the older generation's dedication and integrity, such as the Fu family's service to the emperor, prime minister, He's loyalty, and General Yan's sacrifices at the frontier, the younger heirs were tarnishing their legacies. Lu saw. Jing agreed. Still, he pointed out that the young master of the Yan family wasn't without merit. His academic and martial abilities at Baihu Hall had been impressive, and his character seemed to veer more toward the unorthodox than the irresponsible. Lu Ping snorted at that, and dryly remarked that carefree was just a polite way of calling someone a wolf in sheep's clothing. Lu Jing chuckled and teased Lu Ping, saying the rumors of their mutual dislike seemed to hold some truth. "What rumors?" Lu Ping asked curiously. "That he thinks you're dull, and you can't stand his arrogance," Lu Jing replied. Lu Ping didn't deny it. "Sounds accurate," he admitted, clearly uninterested in extending the topic of Yan Ren any further. Instead, he picked up his exam booklet and respectfully handed it over to his brother. "Brother, could you take a look at this?" Lu Jing took it and began to review it, his expression unreadable. As the evening chill settled in, Zhang Yun gently suggested that his master bring a cloak when going out. He remarked that the nights were getting colder. Yan Ren, with his head bowed and eyes fixed on the cobblestones beneath his feet, dismissed the concern with a casual air. He declared that he was just a warrior. Cold meant little to someone like him. After all, when war broke out, autumn would arrive early at the borders, and the winds there would cut deeper than anything in the capital. Zhang Yun, ever straightforward, reminded him that he had never actually set foot on the border. How would he know what the winds there felt like? Yan Ren, momentarily distracted as he counted the cobblestones, eventually chuckled and confessed that he had seen it, not in person, but in dreams. With dusk falling fast, the city gates of the Jiaoboi imperial city had already closed. Luckily, side gates remained open for a little while longer. Yan Ren had been detained at the military training grounds and had only finished his duties in the late afternoon. As he prepared to return home, he suddenly remembered the books still tied to his horse. Rather than return later, he decided to head to Baihu Hall immediately to drop them off. He called for Zhang Yun to keep up as he quickened his pace. At Baihu Hall, the golden light of the setting sun spilled across the entrance. Zhang Yun followed, and placed a box of books on the desk inside. A cold wind slipped through the corridor, brushing against a folding screen and sending a shiver through the air. Yan Ren moved quickly to shift the screen and dampen the noise. As he looked toward the bookshelf, he noticed that only the last bottom slot remained empty, his slot. He was the only one who had forgotten to return his assigned book. Near the eye shelf, a side door stood slightly ajar. Loose sheets of rice paper stirred in the breeze, several already blown out of the room and across the floor. Zhang Yun muttered about the mess and bent down to collect the scattered pages. Yan Ren crouched beside him, picking up one sheet and glancing at its contents. He paused and let out a curious hum. Zhang Yun turned to him, asking what had caught his attention. Yan Ren explained that this wasn't one of the assignments given by Old Song. It was something different. He examined the writing. Though the penmanship lacked finesse, the strokes were upright and firm, revealing sincerity and a clear state of mind. He then began to read aloud. Thus, those who cannot fulfill their natural lifespan and perish midway are burdened by worldly affairs. This is true of all things. For a long time, I have sought freedom beyond such burdens. Zhang Yun, puzzled, asked where the passage came from. Yan Ren identified it as a quote from the Zhuangzi, a text often frowned upon by Orthodox scholars. Though not banned, its content was viewed as subversive, its philosophy considered unsuitable for personal conduct, household management, or governance. Finding such a passage hidden in the book collection at Baihu Hall, he said, was quite intriguing. Zhang Yun noticed a rare gleam in Yan Ren's eyes. His master looked deeply fascinated, as if he had discovered a hidden treasure. Zhang Yun couldn't help but ask whether Yan Ren believed one of the students at Baihu Hall had secretly taken an interest in unorthodox teachings. And what did the passage mean? Settling more comfortably, Yan Ren continued reading with interest. He appeared genuinely absorbed, as if he had stumbled upon something far more valuable than mere forgotten paper.